This is a sound check from the Qualcomm mic. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Singing on this one.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the County of Monterey briefing. This briefing is specifically about the Moss Landing incident, which occurred on January 16th. We're happy that you're all here today to hear from our experts, not only from the county, but also our partners at the state and federal government, as well as the Vistra folks. A couple important housekeeping things before we get started with the press conference. The speakers are going to speak for approximately 3 minutes each, maybe some little variation here and there. The questions will be at the end of the presentations, all the presentations. Our last speaker will be our County Administrative Officer, Sonia De La Rosa, and then we'll open it up to questions. I will moderate the questions. You can ask questions in one of two ways. You can either raise your hand here in the room to be recognized. When you are recognized, or at least indicate that you want to be recognized, just let me know, who you are, just so that we can get that on recording, and what station, what network, what newspaper you represent. Also online, those of you that are on Zoom, you can do the same thing. You use the raised hand feature and be recognized, and we'll unmute you, or you can send your questions through the chat. And we have Karen Smith, our PIO from our health department, and May Carroll, our PIO here in the county administrative office, that are monitoring the questions, and they will feed the questions to me that come in through chat. We do have a hard stop at 1:00. And so the hope is that you'll get all your questions answered. And we also, just to note, we'll be posting some new information on our website this afternoon after the press briefing that includes some of the information you're going to hear today from some of our speakers. So with that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nick Pasculi. I am the County Communications Director and Chief Public Information Officer for the County of Monterey. I want to also note that the county has been organizing joint information center calls 3 days a week with a number of industry groups in the ag industry, the hospitality industry, and our neighboring counties, San Benito County and Santa Cruz County, as well as numerous department heads from our county to keep the flow of information going and to share information as we can with each other and with our communities. And that's been ongoing and will continue to be ongoing until we get a resolution on this incident. So I do want to thank very much those industry partners, in particular our ag industry, our hospitality industry, the County of San Benito and the County of Santa Cruz for being good partners with us in collaborating and coordinating our efforts as it concerns this incident. With that, I'd like to bring up our first speaker. Our first speaker is the Director of Environmental Health for the County of Monterey, Rick Encarnacion, who will give us a briefing on where they stand in their department. Rick.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rick Encarnacion, Director of Environmental Health, County of Monterey. I'm here to provide an update on our ongoing environmental health efforts following the battery energy storage site fire at Moss Landing. Our top priority remains the health and safety of our community. With regards to the soil and water testing, the Department of Toxic Substance Control, DTSC, has completed initial soil sampling, and I'd like to read their statement. Data from the sampling conducted by the Department of Toxic Substance Control, DTSC, indicates there are not elevated metals associated with the fire in soil. DTSC obtained soil samples directly north from the location of the fire and up to 4 miles away, including at residences, schools, and community parks. While initial surface screenings of ash and debris detected elevated levels of metals, subsequent soil samples did not. Out of an abundance of caution, DTSC recommends additional sampling directly north of the site to further evaluate some elevated concentrations of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, which may or may not be fire-related, and evaluation of background soil cobalt concentrations, which will allow for deeper understanding of the potentially impacted land. As with any fire, members of the community should avoid handling fire-related debris. If you have questions or concerns about fire-related debris from the Moss Landing incident, please contact the county at 831-755-4505 or through the Environmental Health Bureau online concern form at www.mtyhd.org/mosslanding-concern-form. DTSC will continue to coordinate with local, state, and federal partners to develop comprehensive plans to protect public health and the environment. That's it from DTSC. Regarding drinking water, all tested samples remain within regulatory standards, and the results are consistent with historical data. We will continue testing where needed, and we will provide updates as soon as results are available. With regards to ensuring a safe cleanup, we continue to hold responsible party accountable for safe and effective cleanup efforts. The Environmental Health Bureau remains vigilant, ensuring ongoing monitoring and regulatory oversight. If community members encounter fire-related debris again, we advise against handling it and encourage reporting concerns to the county for proper evaluation. With regards to community concerns and transparency, we understand concerns from residents regarding independent soil testing and legal actions. We want to assure the public that our work is guided by science, and we remain committed to sharing validated data through official sources. We encourage the community to rely on our coordinated efforts with state and federal agencies to provide accurate information. For stormwater and future risk prevention, with the rainy season approaching, we are working to implement stormwater management measures to prevent potential contaminants from spreading. Additionally, we are evaluating long-term regulatory changes to strengthen oversight and emergency response planning for battery energy storage sites. For regional collaboration, we acknowledge environmental concerns extended beyond Monterey County, and we appreciate the collaboration.
Déjame
with
ver.
the
Me costó trabajo, obviamente el sábado y domingo. Luego el lunes, que traté de otra vez de agarrar el ritmo.
Sure. For regional collaboration, we acknowledge that environmental concerns extend beyond Monterey County. And we appreciate the collaboration of our neighboring counties, Santa Cruz, San Benito, and Santa Clara. Working together ensures that all affected residents receive the attention and resources needed. These processes take time, and we must be meticulous to get it right. We are committed to be looking in all directions from the site to uncover what we don't yet know.
Ay, pues ánimo.
The Environmental Health Bureau remains steadfast in its mission to protect public health and the environment. Thank you.
Great. And for those that are on Zoom, I want to remind you all to please mute yourself. We have gotten a few, please mute yourself if you're on Zoom. Thank you very much. Now I want to introduce to you Dylan Clark, Senior Environmental Scientist from the Department of Toxic Substance Control. And Dylan is going to be joining us via Zoom. Welcome, Dylan, to the briefing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My team was assigned to go out and collect some of those initial samples. So I just want to thank Rick for reading our statement. I don't really have anything more to add, but I want to be here available for any questions. And that's it for me.
All right, great. So hang on with us throughout this press conference, Dylan, and if you have questions, we'll direct them to you. Thank you very much.
Good.
And at this time, I'd like to introduce one of our federal partners from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, Eric Sandusky, who is here with us today and is going to give us some air monitoring updates. Welcome.
Thank you, Nick. And thank you to Monterey County for the invitation to speak here today. I also want to thank the state agencies in the county for our partnership in responding to this incident. My name is, as Nick said, Eric Sandusky. I'm with the United States Environmental Protection Agency, and I'm an on-scene coordinator. So I'm here to discuss EPA's role in the Moss Landing fire response. The night of the fire, EPA was called in by the county to do some supplemental air monitoring. And we arrived on scene about 2 a.m. on January 17th. We began immediately monitoring for particulate matter and hydrogen fluoride gas, which are the two contaminants of concern for battery fires that pose, the biggest risk for public health. EPA's role was to collect and then supply air monitoring data to local officials, including North County Fire, Monterey County Environmental, and the California Office of Environmental Health, Hazard and Assessment. So these officials could make public health determinations. EPA installed a total of 9 air monitoring stations in and around the facility. And those were set up strategically located to account for any changes in wind direction or potential drift of nearby contaminants. EPA had our sensors running real time continuously for 24 hours a day. And that data collection was once every second. And again, they're monitored and recorded for 24 hours. Throughout the incident, EPA data showed that the results from hydrogen fluoride and particulate matter posed no threat to the public health. After consulting with the county's incident commander and due to improved conditions and the diminished fire and smoke at the facility, EPA concluded its supplemental air monitoring operations on January 20th. The County of Monterey and various state agencies are now leads on this response. However, EPA is providing technical assistance and oversight to the responsible party. EPA has issued a notice of federal response action to Vistra, and Vistra has been cooperating voluntarily to implement the response actions that EPA indicated are necessary to the response. EPA commits to continuing to keep the public updated on any further or additional actions that we take. And again, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that, and appreciate you being here with us today. Changing on the subject of air, we're going to hear from Richard Stedman, who is from the Monterey Bay Air Resources District. Richard is going to be talking to us about the monitoring during the incident and following the incident, and Richard is joining us from Zoom. Good afternoon, Richard, and go right ahead.
Great. Thank you very much for having me here today. Yes, I'm Richard Stedman. I'm the Air Pollution Control Officer for the Monterey Bay Air Resources District, or MBARD. MBARD routinely monitors the air quality throughout our three-county region. We're the responsible agency for managing the air quality within that region. All of our monitoring results are available in easy-to-read graphical format on our website, which is www.mbard.org. And we display this according to the air quality index that's been established by EPA, which ranges from good to hazardous air quality with a color metric system. The primary pollutant that we monitor is PM 2.5, which is PM is particulate matter 2.5 microns or less. That's the material that's easily respirable and can get into the lungs and into the bloodstream ultimately. PM also includes dust, smoke, and soot, as well as other combustion byproducts from fires, including aerosols and different materials. So it's a good representative of what may be in a particular emission from a fire. But sort of serendipity has happened here as a result of all the significant smoke impacts we've had over the recent few years with wildfires. MBARD developed a comprehensive and robust sensor network for wildfire smoke. This has been deployed throughout our three-county region, and there's a total of 30 of these monitors or sensors with additional regulatory air monitors, which are very sophisticated and expensive equipment that is strategically placed throughout our three-county region. So it's important to note that the network that we currently have was not designed to look at fires from the battery plant. So that's a given, but it's fortunate that we had this information available because it can be used to detect any emissions from the fires. In fact, our sensors are established and set up at schools, public schools in the area, because that's the first question we have: is it safe to go to the school? It's important also to note that we don't look at other pollutants besides PM10. So we weren't looking at heavy metals, we weren't looking at hydrofluoric acid or any kind of lithium oxide or anything like that. But smoke is a good surrogate for measuring that type of emission from a fire. So where there's smoke, there's probably heavy metals and other components of combustion that may have public health impacts. So the results of our monitoring, which is 24/7, 365 days a week, you can go on right now and find that, is that we did not see any impacts associated directly with the Moss Landing fire. Like I said, we weren't situated directly adjacent to the facility, but we had monitors in the surrounding areas, including Castroville, Prunedale, Aromas, Santa Cruz, and Watsonville. We did see, and the whole state saw, elevated levels of particulate matter from wildfire smoke, and that's because it was super cold. And we do have a significant wildfire smoke problem, especially in the San Lorenzo Valley of Santa Cruz. During the first few days, when the emissions were greatest, we did not see anything. We continue to see good air quality around the facility. And now our data is available to download, and you can look back at what happened over those days. Certainly, if the plant resumes operation, it would be important to have a network immediately adjacent to the facility to look at this, similar to what was deployed by EPA during the emergency. That would be give great comfort and reassurance that you could actually detect what's being emitted from the fire during an episode like this. So we will continue to monitor the air, and our results are available on our website. And we'll be working with the facility and others to see what we can do about establishing a more sophisticated network to look at specifics when there is an upset like this. That concludes my remarks. I'll be happy to answer questions at the end. And I guess up next,
Thank
we
you,
have-
Richard.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Richard. I appreciate that, and hang tight with us, and we'll get to some questions for you probably later. Shifting gears a little bit from air, we're going to go to the public health topic, and we have Christy Michi, who is the Deputy Director of our Public Health Bureau with the County Health Department. Christy, welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Christy Michi. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Health for the County of Monterey Health Department. I'd like to start this afternoon by reviewing Public Health's initial response to the event. When the facility fire initially was reported, Public Health recommended release of general smoke-related guidance to the Monterey community based on particulate matter smoke contains and the potential for the smoke to include other substances like metals and hydrogen fluoride gas. Public health guidance reminded residents that smoke can cause eye, throat, and nose irritation, coughing, difficulty breathing. That the people who may be the most sensitive to smoke include young children, older adults, pregnant people, and people with respiratory conditions like asthma and COPD or heart conditions. And that sensitive populations and people who live in areas affected by smoke should take steps to reduce exposure, like avoiding outdoor activities when smoke is present and wearing a well-fitted N95 respirator. Finally, Public Health recommended that residents affected by smoke seek medical guidance if respiratory symptoms develop or worsen. This was similar to guidance provided by Santa Cruz and San Benito County public health agencies during early days of the incident. Currently, county public health and environmental health representatives continue to meet regularly with our colleagues from other counties and coordinate public health guidance throughout the region. We understand and appreciate that residents have unanswered questions about health impacts related to the fire. At this time, public health officials continue to recommend that individuals with concerns about their personal medical health related to the fire contact their medical provider or seek medical attention. For those without an established medical provider, information on medical clinics in the area can be found by calling 211. We hear and value the concerns that have been shared with us about what chemicals, metals, and other compounds may have been present in the air and deposited in the environment. Public Health will continue to review information from soil, water, and other testing as it becomes available, compare results from with established and state and federal standards, as well as available research, and seek guidance from state and federal subject matter experts on how to interpret the information. We recognize the importance of understanding how this event may have impacted the health of our communities. Public Health is developing a community survey to systematically gather information on symptoms residents may have experienced, when symptoms started, if the symptoms still have stopped, whether they sought medical care, and other health-related questions. In addition, the survey will ask questions about health information received during the first few days of the fire to help inform future responses. The anticipated release date of the survey is early next week. The survey will be available in English and Spanish via web link and QR code. There will be a phone option for individuals who may have difficulty responding to an online survey or need assistance in other languages. We recognize that many community members may currently be reluctant to provide personal information to public health, which is part of a government agency. We want to assure residents that we will consider the survey information as protected health information. While we will share survey results publicly, they will be released in a manner that does not personally identify any individuals completing the survey, similar to how public health releases information in an aggregate form about people who are sick with E. coli, whooping cough, and other communicable diseases. We know that the media and community groups can be very effective disseminators of information. We ask for your help to spread the word when the survey link is distributed. Encourage your friends, neighbors, and coworkers affected by the fire to complete it. Lastly, Public Health will provide additional updates as we are closer to launching the survey and as recommended public health guidance changes.
Thank you very much, Christy. Appreciate that. So obviously, since this incident, our ag community has been very engaged with our ag commissioner's office, and here to talk to us today about that engagement and collaboration is Juan Hurtado, our ag commissioner for the county of Monterey. Juan?
Thank you, Nick. Good afternoon. Juan Hidalgo, Monterey County Ag Commissioner. My office continues to remain engaged with our Environmental Health Bureau and our ag industry to follow the situation and help to understand the analysis results from the state agencies. It is reassuring to hear that no elevated levels of heavy metals have been found in soil from the samples collected. The health of our agricultural workforce is a top priority for our county and our growers, and this information comes at a time when agricultural production in our county will begin to ramp up over the next several weeks, and it will help to reassure our agricultural workforce. It is also important to note that many agricultural fields in our region are still fallow. We're in the middle of winter at this point, so there's very few commodities that have been harvested over the last several weeks. We have some planted commodities in the field, many of which will be planted a little bit later on as we enter into the springtime. And so very little commodities are in the fields right now, and that's reassuring, as we continue to evaluate the state sampling information as well. This also means that over the last several weeks, there has been very few agricultural workers in fields. And even now, there's very few workers at this time, but that will ramp up over the next few weeks as we enter into the springtime. Our growers have also been very concerned about soil and plant health, and it is reassuring to know that there's no elevated levels of metals found in the soil related to the fire. Our agricultural industry has been following closely the data from the samples and consulting with soil and plant health experts to ensure the safety of our food supply. So I look forward to continuing to communicating with our county agencies and also communicating with our agricultural industry leaders to make sure that we have a good and safe agricultural season, not just for our workers, but to ensure the safety of our food supply for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Appreciate that and all your efforts in your office. So we're going to shift gears over to Vistra. We have representatives from Vistra here, one with us present. We have Brad Watson, and we also have Cynthia Voldapovic, who is on Zoom with us. And Brad, I believe you're going to go, Cynthia's going to go first and talk to us about some environmental health and safety issues. So Cynthia, the floor is yours.
Great. Good afternoon. I'm Cynthia Vodapovic. I'm the Senior Vice President of Environmental Health and Safety for Vistra. So on behalf of Vistra, I want to provide an update on what has been happening at the Moss Landing site in terms of testing, remediation efforts, and next steps. And Brad will follow me. So in terms of some of the testing, we are working with EPA, as Eric mentioned, to investigate areas within the determined soot deposition model that was determined by EPA. This area is a localized area within the immediate area of the plant site and adjacent property immediately to the north and west of the plant. EPA's soot model defined the area where soot from the fire could be expected to fall based on direct observations of the fire, local weather conditions over time, and multiple other parameters. Based on the science and the testing results, we do not believe that areas outside the EPA's model were impacted by the event. As mentioned previously, the soil samples conducted by DTSC now confirm that there are not elevated metals associated with the fire in soil. DTSC tested directly north of the location of the fire and at locations up to 4 miles away. These results are consistent with surface wipe sampling for metals conducted by CTEH, an independent environmental expert working in consultation with the EPA. At the plant site itself, the surface wipe sampling for metals and air monitoring shows that the site meets OSHA standards. In light of this, enhanced personal protective equipment requirements, which were adopted during the fire and immediate response efforts, have been removed for both employees and other visitors at the site. In terms of water, the Marina Coast Water District confirmed that the public water supply was not affected by this event, and it remains safe for consumption and has remained so throughout the event. Additionally, the county mentioned earlier that they collected water samples and confirmed that all levels are within safe drinking water standards. Lastly, air quality monitoring, which began immediately after the event and which remains ongoing and around the perimeter of our site, has not detected any hazardous levels. These findings have been confirmed by both EPA and MBIRD, as you heard earlier. We are continuing to work with EPA, the county, and state agencies, and will provide additional data and updates as they are available. Brad, I can turn over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cynthia. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to participate in today's news briefing. My name is Brad Watson. I'm the Senior Director of Community Affairs for Vistra. We have begun our investigation into the cause of the fire, and we have retained multiple outside experts to assist in that effort. We are working alongside our local, state, and federal regulators so that we can all understand what happened and learn how to prevent similar incidents from happening elsewhere. We will publicly share, of course, the findings of our investigation when it is complete. Vistra is aware that there have been some public statements by others about the cause of this event, but I want to emphasize something that is a very important fact. The cause is not yet known by anyone. Any suggestions about the cause are speculation to be treated as such. Our two other battery storage facilities at Moss Landing remain offline, and there are no immediate plans to bring them back online. This will only be considered when we have had sufficient time to evaluate both Moss Landing 100 and Moss Landing 350 in light of what we've learned. Any battery storage restart will be done in consultation and coordination with all appropriate regulatory bodies. Our focus now is on completing the investigation, continued environmental monitoring, and the eventual demolition of the Moss Landing 300 facility, which will be done in close consultation with US EPA, Monterey County, and the relevant state agencies. Now, on the relief funds, we have partnered with the Community Foundation of Monterey County to create the Moss Landing Relief Fund. Vistra donated $450,000 to establish this fund to offset resident expenses associated with the evacuation. The foundation will hold a third in-person event scheduled for Saturday, February 22nd at the Moss Landing Harbor District office. So any remaining eligible residents with an address within the evacuation zone can receive the funds to offset those expenses. We also understand that some businesses were disrupted by the January evacuation and road closures, and we want to compensate and help them. We have brought in an experienced third-party claims administrator to oversee the evaluation process, and they will review submitted business claims on a case-by-case basis. The review and approval of some of these claims has already begun, and we're committed to providing prompt payments to qualified claims. Interested businesses can learn more at mosslandingresponse.com. And I also want to add that the information and some maps that Cynthia has referred to regarding the CTEH testing will also be on mosslandingresponse.com later today, as are all the updates that Vistra is providing along the way as we go through this journey of responding to this fire, mosslandingresponse.com. Thanks again for the opportunity to appear today.
Thank you very much, Brad. Appreciate that. And Cynthia, thank you for being with us on Zoom. Appreciate that very much. And just stand by in case there's some questions directed for you. Want to shift back to the county. We have with us Craig Spencer, who's the director of our Housing and Community Development Department, and he will talk about the approval process for what's to come next with Vistra and the cleanup.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Craig Spencer, the Director of Housing and Community Development for Monterey County. Good afternoon, everyone. I provide an update and announcement on the history of the permitting for Moss Landing. This is the former power plant site, and in 2019, 2018 actually, we got an application from Vistra to convert an existing building from what was turbines and energy generation into the storage of battery energy systems. That permit did go through our process. It went through environmental review under California Environmental Quality Act. We prepared an initial study. At the time, it was the Resource Management Agency. That initial study was sent through various state agencies and local agencies for review and comment. It was published for a 30-day public review and comment period. We did receive 2 comments from state agencies, Caltrans and California Fish and Wildlife. We reviewed those, we responded to those, and ultimately the permit was approved by the Planning Commission in 2019. There were other permits for battery energy storage systems. There was a phase 2 for Vistra that included additional battery energy storage systems in other buildings on the site. Went through the same process and was approved later on. And on the other half of the site is Pacific Gas and Electric, also has a smaller battery energy storage facility. Again, went through the permitting process around that same time between 2018 and 2020. All 3 were approved at the Planning Commission. None of them were appealed to the Coastal Commission, the California Coastal Commission, who has oversight in this area. It is in the coastal zone. Moving forward, we have been in discussions talking about how to stabilize this site, including stabilizing some walls that are still standing from the burned structure, and the floors that have some partially collapsed in order to make it safe for those who are there and doing inspections and monitoring. That concludes my update, and happy to answer any questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Craig. We're happy to have with us today Chief Joel Mendoza with the North County Fire Protection District, who's going to talk about some background information and some training and some incident procedures that they use during this incident. Joel. Thank you, Nick.
Hello again. My name is Joel Mendoza, the Fire Chief of the North County Fire District. And thank you for having me here today. As previously reported, a fire broke out in the Moss 300 building, consuming approximately 70% of the structure and its batteries over a period of 3 days. Since the fire was contained, Vistra has been monitoring the site using aerial drones equipped with thermal cameras and hand thermal imaging cameras. In addition, they do have a private fire department that replaced us, I believe it was about a week and a half into the incident. And so they're there 24 hours a day with their crews monitoring the situation. To date, I can report that the burnt and potentially damaged batteries and the building have remained stable. And while rainy conditions remain a factor, right? It's a concern for us. We've navigated to 3 of those events up until now, and we feel fortunate to have not had any kind of incident so far. We do expect some weather tonight and tomorrow, but we expect the same result based on what we've been through already. As the Moss Landing power plant transitions into the recovery phase, the fire department will remain actively engaged to ensure a swift response to any changes in any conditions there. We're also closely following the development of the building demolition and the battery removal plans. And we're going to remain informed and an active participant in that planning process. So something's come up, over the last few weeks. I've received the inquiries regarding whether we've received any training from the power plant. And I want to confirm that we have. We have received training over the last 5 years, as a matter of fact. A lot of the training was provided by staff, and in some instances, they reached out to industry experts to come in and do training for us. The training that was covered was battery fundamentals, emergency response procedures, and it has included tabletop incidents, or should say tabletop exercises. So I can also add that our actions on the day of the fire were guided by the facility emergency plan that was developed by the company. And this plan was specifically developed to assist first responders during such incidents. The facility emergency plan outlines suppression efforts for overheated but not actively burning batteries. However, upon our arrival, the batteries that we encountered were already in thermal runaway. This condition, which poses a significant risk to responders, and these risks include electric shock, release of toxic chemicals, and flammable gases. These conditions necessitated allowing the built-in battery thermal management system and the battery management system to do their job, right? Do what they were designed to do. It's also important to note that this event, while significant, burnt for 3 days, which is a far shorter duration than some other similar incidents in which, fire suppression efforts were initiated unsuccessfully, I should say, and ultimately the batteries burned for a longer period of time. And while we're confident in our training and response, we also recognize that there is always room for improvement. We will continue to conduct a thorough review of the incident and incorporate lessons learned to ensure that we have a better response in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. We appreciate all your efforts of your department, and certainly CAL FIRE, who also supported you as well during this incident. So next up, we have Kelsey Scanlon, our Director of Department of Emergency Management. And Kelsey's going to talk to us about incident transition to recovery, health assessment units, and hazard advisories. Kelsey.
Thank you, Nick. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm Kelsey Scanlon, Director of Emergency Management. With the immediate life safety threats having somewhat diminished, the Department of Emergency Management has begun shifting our focus from response to recovery as conditions on site stabilize and threats within the fence line are mitigated. At this juncture, our primary concerns include the monitoring of and safe removal of the remaining lithium-ion batteries within the debris footprint and the environmental impacts of that remaining lithium. The hazard advisory that was issued last weekend will remain in place through the atmospheric river that's anticipated over the next several days. We will continue to monitor. We will continue to anticipate and support the needs of our partners, especially our partners with the health assessment unit, as they conduct sampling and assess the impacts to health in the surrounding community. We are also closely following the debris removal process, especially in relation to the remaining hazardous materials. And as such, we're in close coordination with our partners at Environmental Health, North County Fire Protection District, and the Housing and Community Development Department. The safety of the public and the environment remains our top priority as we continue to support recovery efforts in Moss Landing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Appreciate that update. And before we get to our Q&A, we want to hear from our County Administrative Officer, Sonia De La Rosa. Sonia, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Sonia De La Rosa, County Administrative Officer for the County of Monterey. Just a couple brief statements and really to bring the team together. All of our county representatives that spoke today have been involved from the beginning and previously related to the emergency plan. There was some feedback that was provided back and forth, but also now going forward, we have not stopped being engaged, not only with our partners, but also with others, including our health and hospitals, both in the Watsonville area and in Monterey County and San Benito County. So our joint operation or our joint information center brings us all together and allows us to share messages that are unified, but truly addressing impacts that are occurring in all three counties simultaneously. I do want to thank the media folks and also our social media folks that have helped share information throughout the county and quite frankly throughout the the counties that are adjacent to us and beyond. Ongoing communication has been critical. I know a lot of folks want responses very quickly, but we're being very deliberate about how we share information because we want it to be vetted more times than three. And then, of course, have some context as they're coming out to you, because what we've had is additional questions once we've shared information. So we want those communications to continue. We want to continue hearing from the public. We want to continue hearing from our partners. We want you to reach out to environmental health and the county in general, to our public information officer, to share concerns that you might have. But also, we understand that there's folks that are conducting their own type of investigations and finding specific information. If you could please continue to share that information with our team. There is a vetting process that we go through, but all of that information, all of that detail that you're sharing with us has been critical as we've moved forward. And lastly, I do want to share, as we pivot towards recovery and also continuing our business as usual with the county, but in our allied agencies, we still continue to be very much involved in the recovery process and have already engaged our legislators from the start to try to look at different alternatives of how we could ensure that we continue forward with this battery energy storage systems, but do so in a safer way, or again, evolving as the technology evolves. So on behalf of the county, I just want to thank you. Thank you for continuing to get our message out there, for providing clarity when people are asking for that, but also for redirecting them to us so that we could also communicate with them as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Appreciate you being here today as well. So we're going to go to our questions. And so if you would kindly, if you have a question, let us know who you'd like the question addressed to, and we'll proceed that way. And then, of course, when you introduce yourself, what agency you're with. But we do have someone with their hand raised online right now, Scott Cohen, and then I'll get to KSBW that's here in the room. Scott, go ahead and unmute yourself, and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks, Nick. I'm Scott Cohen with KZU Radio. This question is for Dylan from Toxic Substances, or Rick for Environmental Health, but I'd also like Cynthia from Vistra to weigh in on this. The soil testing results that you presented seem to be at odds with the results that came from San Jose State, which seem to be in the same area. They said they did find elevated levels. And I'm wondering what explains that. What are we to make of that, and what are residents to make of that? And for Vista's part, do those levels from toxic substances vindicate you? I mean, what does all of this mean?
Go ahead, Dylan. Why don't you respond first?
Well, I'll just add that. So the data collected, by San Jose State, I'm not sure exactly how we collected it. XRF readings that we took were of surface. And, if we take a reading of something from the surface, like I'm just giving an example of like a bottle cap, it's going to show elevated readings, right? And so the one XRF reading, I think that was just at the fence line. So, I don't think that these things really conflict. The soil sample data is really, what we use to assess. So that's all I can really say about it. And I'm sure, we can prepare better answers too.
Well, and just if I could, they also did XRF, and I'm way out over my skis on this, but they all say they also did XRF immediately adjacent to the plant, and they did find elevated levels. So I'm wondering what might explain that.
So the XRF hits the surface. It doesn't penetrate any more than might be just the very surface. So we'd have to, and the XRF isn't, as reliable as other sample results too. So, but that's just a short, quick explanation there. So, yeah.
Hi, Rick Encarnacion, Director of Environmental Health. Yeah, and with like what Dylan is saying, it kind of goes in line with our observations. The closer you are to the fire, the more affected the immediate area was. So I don't have any comments for the San Jose study, but it just confirms my observations that the closer you are to the fire, the more affected the surrounding areas were.
And to the best of my knowledge, we haven't seen the data from the San Jose study yet, have we?
I have not seen the specific data or studied it. We received it. It definitely is something that we would work with, just like with anybody else who calls in a concern through our phone line or through our online form or through any channel. It helps us point us in what direction we need to look at.
Great. Thank you. Cynthia, did you want to add anything to this?
I think you know, Dylan from DTSC and environmental health basically summarized it, right? The XRF data is a screening tool that tells you where to continue looking. The soil data is true data, right? That DTSC made those determinations on. We have not seen the data from San Jose, so we can't really, you know, opine on that. But in keeping with what we've been saying, I agree that the closer you are to the site, the more potential impact that there is there, and that's what the EPA soot model, you know, plume, or the EPA soot model also show that the potential impact is really very close to the plant.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Scott, for your question. Let's go to
Can I just follow up? I just want to, just while we're on this, and just so that I can understand, and maybe everyone can understand. So the XRF sampling is a screening model, and what DTSC did was actual physical soil samples. Is that what might explain the difference?
Yes, it's one of them. And just, yeah, the soil sample collects everything at the surface, whereas XRF screening is just going to get a hit for a tiny little portion of it. So what could be in there, you know, in that little tiny section could be like in this case, I think there was one elevated reading that was actually just a piece of the building that we took a reading of right at the fence line. And so, you know, that's the thing. It's like, but when you collect the actual sample, you know, you're getting everything from the surface. And so you're trying to see like how much of it was actually being released and was there any effect, you know, versus that XRF is just that one little tiny spot.
Great. Thank you very much, Dylan. Thank you, Scott, for your question. The KSBW in the room.
So my name is Joyce Kim. I'm with KSBW. I also have the San Jose State University studies is different than what the EPA is reporting.
So
the community took over 100 members of the community collected soil samples, and those samples showed that there was heavy metals on the surface. So that's the case. How thorough was the soil testing? Because if they're seeing traces of these heavy metals at the surface level, how is it not affecting the soil? And how is, we keep saying potential threat, and like the community, I know there's fear in the community and concern, and I just wanted someone to address this.
So Dylan, the question was, and I don't know if you heard it from KSBW, about how thorough were the soil samples, and what about the 100 samples that were taken with the wipe samples from the community groups, and where does that play into the overall safety of the surrounding areas?
All right, so I'm not, you know, really at liberty to make any comments about the safety surrounding areas, but I can, you know, make a little comment about that. Like a wipe sample, like the XRF is going to be just, you know, that dusting of the surface. When we take the soil samples, we're trying to see like actually how much came off of this, right? Versus just what might have hit the surface of something. So we're trying to evaluate, was there actual like contamination of the soil? So that's the best I can sort of explain it right now, is that those XRF and those wipe samples are really just getting like that very, very small surface, versus when we do, you know, the soil sampling, we're actually getting everything that's on the surface down to, you know, like maybe half an inch into the ground to see how much of this stuff really came off, you know? And so that's the difference there.
Yeah, if I may also add, so again, the San Jose State study was, from my understanding, within the Elkhorn Slough area, very close to the site. The work that we did with DTSC as part of the official trying to find out how far and wide this went included not just screening, but the soil samples. So just like when you go to a doctor's office and you get screening for like diabetes or heart disease, you do a screening exam, and then you have something, if your doctor says, oh, let's take a little bit deeper look and have some more tests done. That's what we did. That's what DTSC's done. So the public sampling, great. You know, we like to have the public involved and we get the information from them, points us into the right direction where we possibly may need to look. So with that and the official results of what we need to do in terms of my role in environmental health as the enforcer and to ensure that responsible parties take action, we're looking at like what Dylan is doing at DTSC and all of our partners so that we can push out the right messaging and information and then take action. So the information from San Jose State, the information from the community partners, in my mind, kind of all lines up. The closer you are to the event, that's how where we really need to look and keep looking.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Going to go to Ruth on Zoom. Ruth, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Ruth Dussault, Bay City News. I have a public health question. Residents told us that their doctors did not have or know the tests needed to determine if their patients have been exposed to battery fire contaminants like nickel, cobalt, and manganese. Are the state and county public health agencies working to remedy that and develop some sort of public information or workflow?
Yes, Christy's coming up to address that.
Yeah, sometimes their doctors told them that it was in their heads and things.
Okay.
Hi, Christy Mishi, Assistant Director of Public Health. So we have been in consultation with subject matter experts from the California Department of Public Health. We do acknowledge that there may be some providers who this may be the first opportunity they have had to see a patient with these types of symptoms. So we are working with our partners in the surrounding counties to develop some guidance for our local healthcare providers, and we do expect that to be released later this week. So thank you for that question.
Great. Yes, Felix, go ahead. Felix.
I want to go like just a week up from here. Rick kind of alluded to this fact. So what do we look at to hopefully prevent this from happening again when these things go back online? And if it does happen again, we're not standing around watching it burn.
You know, I think the county is taking a very holistic approach as it looks at this. We are gathering not just our county internal experts, but also those experts from outside the county, including North County Fire, law enforcement, et cetera, and determining, you know, how best can we prepare, you know, God forbid this should happen again. And of course, our Department of Emergency Management is very involved in that process with planning and ensuring that in the coming months and years ahead, we continue to have ongoing training, ongoing tabletop exercises and things like that to address these things, because we do not want this to happen again. And we want to do everything we can, number one, to safeguard life and property first and foremost. And number two, to give the public confidence that we're doing everything we can to prepare it, which includes involving those people operating businesses such as the responsible party, in this case, Vistra, or any other company for that matter, that they also be included in that process. So it's not something that's going to happen in a specific point in time. It's going to be something that's going to happen on an ongoing basis. We're continually, I think it was Craig or Juan said, we're always looking to improve. And that's exactly where we're at now. We're looking to be able to respond better, to improve communications, and also to reassure the public that, you know, we are committed to their health and safety, bar none.
I mean, so can anybody in this room say that when these things go back online, there's going to be different processes in place?
So as we look to evaluate what's happened here and we continue to gather information, there are discussions that have already started with our legislators, with others, folks that are within the industry, including our Housing and Community Development, our Environmental Health Division, our Public Health Division, our Fire Department, our ag partners. All of us are interested in this. You know, we're learning from this, obviously, but also moving forward in the safest way possible. I mean, members of our community include us. We all live somewhat adjacent to this facility. And I think that's the thing to keep in mind is that county employees and those of us that may work in other communities, we are all from this community and we're all have a vested interest in this coming back online in the best way possible. And so what we experience in this existing facility is not something that you'll see into the future, because this type of facility is not going to be rebuilt in the way that it was structured, right? So technology has changed significantly. That's another thing to keep in mind. What we had in place in 2016, 2019 is not the same today. You would not be able to build the same structure or have that facility rebuilt in exactly the same way. That's why all of these conversations, nobody's excluded. The school districts are involved. There are corners of our county that are involved that you wouldn't have thought maybe we needed to hear from them as well, but they were directly impacted. My son, just like many sons and daughters of that community, were not able to go to school because of what happened. And so they have the same questions as well. Is it safe? And so we have to be able to answer those questions before this comes back online. And the one good thing about this is that we are having conversations with Vistra, we're having conversations with PG&E, and we're working with our legislators to ensure that it is as safe as we can possibly be.
With that said, Sonia, could you assure the public that when these things come back online, that things will be different to address one, the preventing it from happening, and two, that the response is going to be completely different than what we saw the last time?
I think the most important piece, and I think, Craig could help me respond to that question, because again, what you had in place, and I'm saying you, but what we had in place in 2018 is significantly different than what you see today. And I mean, just begin with your cell phone. Look at your cell phone. It is completely different than what you had in 2016 and 2018. But in this line of work, it is different in the regulatory requirements of a facility like this. So if Craig could come on up and
Your question.
Oh, hold on. There is nothing to be guaranteed, right? I wouldn't be able to guarantee anything, but what I can say is that we are going to do everything we can, working with all of our partners here to ensure that when we come back online, that it is the safest possible. And again, as somebody that lives very close to this facility, and many of us who live in the community, we all have a vested interest in ensuring that it's safe for our kids, for our parents, for our families, and for our dogs and for our pets. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Craig, only because he'll be able to answer more in terms of the regulatory piece.
Thank
I
you,
have a
Sonia.
question for Craig. I have a question
Okay.
for Craig.
Let him address this, and then we'll get to your question.
Yeah. So thank you, Sonia. So we have a number of things that are happening. We have a battery energy storage system that's permitted in 2 phases. What burned was the first phase. Things were different in the second phase. And what is happening is we're doing the investigations to determine what was the cause of that, and what was the result of the fire, and how do we prevent it again. That's why our Board of Supervisors has asked Vistra not to reconnect the batteries at the site until we have better answers. Simultaneously, as Sonia mentioned, there's a number of efforts underway with state legislatures and local regulators, California planning directors, to identify better management practices, rules, and regulations around this, and updates to California building code that are making their progress, as well as the fire codes that are progressing to address this technology. A little bit behind the technology, but is definitely moving forward, and we hope that Vistra will cooperate with us to ensure that before we do anything more that might put the public at risk, that we would identify what happened and how it can be prevented again.
All right, so Ruth, I know you have another question, but there is a question in the room. I want to get to people that haven't asked, and we're almost out of time. Go ahead.
So my name is Brianna. I work for CI Land Use. Based on the current findings, what are the long-term implications for crop and food productions in the affected areas? I know you guys did testing in the north, but what about the south part? I know some people had concerns about south of the city.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. I think I want to come back to the fact that the soil samples show that there's no high levels of some of these metals in the soil. I think that's a good step moving forward to ensure that our growers can continue to produce a safe food supply. Industry is going to continue to follow the results from state agencies, working with some of our crop experts to make sure that the food supply can be safe for our area. And I think the other thing I want to bring up is that some of these materials make part of our natural environment. Some of our soils contain nickel, for instance, or copper. So it's not like there's new metals that have been added to our area because of the incident. So I think that's important for our community to understand as well. So we're going to continue to communicate myself with Environmental Health Bureau and our industry just to continue to make sure that it's safe for our workers and our communities.
All right, so we have one more question. I'll get to you in just a second. We have one from Adriana Fredericks from KSMS. Even though it's winter and there's still some farm workers in the field, is it safe for them to be at work? Are they being exposed to dangerous metal? I think our Ag Commissioner answered that question. That there's no threat to their safety based on the testing that we receive from the state. And so I think that kind of question, Adriana, you have the answer to right now. So let's go back to KSPW and then we're going to wrap it up.
For Vistra, the main question is, what measures were taken after the prior fires in 2021 and 2022? Because I understand a lot of the people affected by this feel like the fire, if there was appropriate fire suppression system then, this wouldn't be a reoccurring problem now. And I was also wondering if you had a reaction to the lawsuit of 100 people from this community for filing a lawsuit against Vistra and PG.
Okay, sounds like there's two parts to your question, right? There was no fire in the two other incidents that were at the Moss Landing Energy Storage Facility. There were operational issues in which water from the water suppression system got onto batteries and there was overheating. After that, they all came down for months. There again was a root cause analysis determining what the cause was. There was a redesign. There was rebuilding of parts of the system at the time, and it was done with consultation of Monterey County and other regulatory agencies to go in there to make sure that it was designed in, it was as safe as possible. So that's the answer to the first question. Second question, I think, has to do with litigation. We're aware of that. There will be a time to answer allegations and litigation. It's not here and now, but what we really want to focus on right now are the results that were reported today by the state, as well as the results that Vistra is releasing as well, US EPA, and that is that there's good news about no hazardous materials in the air or the soil in the region because of the fire.
Just a quick clarifying question. I don't know if I misheard. The current battery plant that just had the fire be demolished?
And 300, the building, ultimately, yes.
Brad, I'm sorry.
The last one.
To Channel 8. Brad, where do we stand on this investigation into the root cause and how much closer are we to finding out what happened?
We have an engineering and structural integrity firm that has been assisting us, plus other consultants. It's going to take months.
And how key is that? Determining the cause, how key is that in terms of moving forward and the concerns that a lot of people have and finding, preventing it from happening again, and then a potential response if it happens again. How key is the finding the root cause of what happened?
Well, we want to find out what happened. That's the first thing, of course. But then there's a lot that's learned along the way that's already been mentioned, and that informs us. It will inform Monterey County, the relevant state agencies as well, the industry, as Administrator De La Rosa was pointing out. Technology is advancing, improving all the time. So are safety features as well. So that's something that will inform us all while we work through this. And of course, we're going to share all that as well.
And with regards to the businesses, where we set aside, I think, $750 for the residents. Has a pool or a pot of money been set aside for the businesses, and how is that whole process looking at it?
Good question. Businesses are being evaluated on a case-by-case basis. They all may be different in the way they operate, all the way from charter boats to restaurants. So we're meeting with some of them as their claims are evaluated. So that process is ongoing, and it's just case by case.
All right, so I've been asked to take one more question and then we're going to wrap this up. Ruth, I'm going to have you unmute yourself and let me know who you want to direct your question to so we can get the right person up here, Netta. And then I also want to say that if I know maybe there might be more questions, if anybody has questions, please reach out to anyone on my team, or you can email us at pr@countyofmonterey.gov. That's pr@countyofmonterey.gov. Go ahead, Ruth.
Thank you. And thank you all for gathering and telling us all these things and answering our questions. My question is for Craig, I think. The 2021 permit did not include an official environmental impact report, but with energy technology turnovers happening on the same site over so many years, was it possible that the EIR was sort of grandfathered into that facility?
Thank you for the question. It's California Environmental Quality Act is not something I think I'm ready to talk about in detail today, but it is something that we're very aware of. So it's at its basics a 4-step determination. Step one is it a project subject to the California Environmental Quality Act? And the answer almost always when we're doing permitting is yes. Can it be exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act under a category of exclusions or a statutory exemption that's adopted by our legislature? If the answer is yes, it does not need to go through environmental review. Everything beyond that needs an initial study, and the results of the initial study are either that there are significant and unavoidable effects that onto the environment that cannot be mitigated, or in which case an EIR is required, or there are less than significant effects or mitigation measures that reduce those effects to a less than significant level. That initial study then becomes what's called a negative declaration or mitigated negative declaration. So various outcomes. What we had in all 3 cases and all 3 permits were mitigated negative declarations that were vetted through the public with public comment and decided on at public hearing. I hope that answers your question. There was no grandfathering.
So was 300 beds exempt?
It was not. It had an initial study.
Initial study. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. So thank you. Thank you all for attending today. Again, if you have questions that you didn't get answered today or you think of something later, please email us at pr@countyofmonterey.gov and we'll do our best to get you those answers as quickly as possible. Or if you'd like to arrange interviews, we can also help you in that regard. Thank you for attending the briefing today. We'll be back here next Wednesday for our regular weekly briefing. Have a great day, everyone.